Also out Facebook. Really no bad.
Right, come on.
Who's in the chat?
I'm just sorting out the YouTube bit. Should be going on. While waiting for the two Davies, it says. Oh, there we go. There we are. We're on.
Hi, we're on. Right, let's see who's in. That's Facebook.
Bonjour, mademoiselle. Bonjour, monsieur.
Rebecca. We've got Gingers. Ginger Giraffe. We've got Eddie. We've got Ashes.
Paul McMillan.
We've got Alistair.
John Piot. Is that John Piot? Hi, guys, from Aaron. Right, okay. Stephen McNeil. Jim Stephen. Angela Lansbury. Oh, sorry, Barbara. Stephen Bankier. Stephen. Your pal Tam, SITV. Tam. Hi, Tam. How you doing? Ringcat. DJ Martin. John Wardrop. Lauren Kirkton. Bruce Morland.
Jim Stevens. Stephen Neal.
What's the numbers up to now, David?
73.
Right, so
Paul McMillan. We're looking for Facebook folk getting aboard. We've got Nathan McAllister. We've got Margaret Mathers. We've got Harry.
Quickly get in your seats. Lots to discuss today.
Aye. Chris Silver. Dodger 37. But we're still waiting the first of the Facebook coming through the door. Aye, there's the last Braveheart in Ice Ninja. Aye, Ice Ninja.
Chris Silver. Aye ho, away.
Aye.
I'm old enough to remember that. Aye ho, Silver, away.
Aye, I know. We all are. The Lone Ranger. Aye, Eddie.
No, you think of the wrong person. He worked at the bank down the road. He was a Lone Ranger. That's what that was.
Lone Ranger. Come on, Facebook, hurry up and wake up. We're up to 100, and that generally means it's kick-off time.
Right, good. Let's go. Right. First one, poll.
Aye,
David.
Right, latest poll by YouGov. It gives the S&P IA a double-digit poll week.
Please remember who YouGov are, right?
Right.
YouGov are owned by what was it? Zahawi.
Zahawi, aye.
Zahawi's family in trust, right? Aye. And so therefore, generally they don't ever supply any of the raw data that goes along with their polls. And therefore, Professor Pat Pending, that we all know, the famous statologist, he's always at war with them, right? Aye. However, they've given...
Can I go on with a bloody poll?
Sorry?
Can I go on with a bloody poll whenever you get back to giving them a time?
Come on.
Right, anyway, latest poll by YouGov gives the SNP a poll lead of 11 points over Labour, with the SNP polling at 38% and Labour on 27% of the vote. For the Westminster election, right? The Conservatives are on 16%, the Lib Dems are on 7%, Greens on 6%, and then there's a 4% for the others. The Alpha Party are in the other category. Believe it or not, Reform UK polled, but the Alpha Party didn't. Right? Now, that was for the Westminster election. Also for the Holyrood election, the SNP are back up in a double-digit leader of Labour in that one as well. On 41% versus 28%. Yeah. 16 for the Commons, 3% for the Greens, 8 for the Lib Dems, and others 4. And that particular polling for the Holyrood election, Reform UK doesn't feature at all.
But really, this was to be expected. What would happen is that after everything that the mainstream media have tried to do to the SNP, it's like people would go, hang on, wait a minute, what's going on here? And people would start to go, no, there's a rabbit way here. Why is it all being pushed towards? Why is all this shit being pushed towards the SNP?
I feel we're beginning to realise that, of course. Anyway, the poll was dated to the 13th of September. Yeah. And how will this affect the Rutherglen and Hamilton West by-election? Well, as we know, there's a bit of a kickback against Labour in that direction and all, because people are really peeved that they aren't seeing any local activists on the doors. It's all people being bussed in from London.
Yes. Or Manchester, or whatever.
Well, it's all London.
London, is it? Right, okay.
I know, being bussed in for headquarters.
It must be really obvious. It must be.
To counter that argument, to counter that, the Scotsman ran a piece saying that the SNP were struggling to get MSPs to campaign in the area. Who's the use of Merriwest lives in the bloody area now? You don't need anybody else when you get the Westminster camp at your doorstep.
Oh, it's stupid, isn't it? I mean, really, we were discussing something. We won't talk about the actual issue we were talking about. However, we were discussing stuff like this before we came on the show, guys. And really, it's like people are being gaslighted all the time by the mainstream media in terms of, you know.
It goes further than that, David. You and I know it affects retail and everything, how they advertise. Hi, Dylan. Thanks very much, son.
If you want to see something a wee bit interesting about how they actually, what kind of power they've got, you know, Darren Brown talks about this on probably every single one of the shows that he does. How people can be programmed, right? And it's like, look on my timeline, there is a really interesting little photograph. It's of like a line of really, really well-dressed people walking down a street, and there's a word being displayed there right in front of your eyes. You have to squint your eyes and turn the screen slightly at an angle, and you'll get it straight away, and it will shock you. And that's how they actually do the manipulation of people's minds. They are very, very good at that.
Oh, David, that reminds me, the weekend at Falkirk, we'll get to that. I was given another £40. I put it straight into the account. We'll get the stuff out the door this week, folks.
Make sure you receive that you've got all that, David. You keep them.
Aye. That's why it's on my desk, mate. By the end of the week, we'll have emptied the account, hopefully, because thanks to you guys, we're starting to get information about smaller charities, and we're leaving messages asking them to get back to us, because a lot of the phones are on answer phone for some mad reason. Anyway, so the polling doesn't look good for Labour at this point in time in Scotland. There's been a rebound. I think a lot of that's going to Davies Starmer and there's no get back into Europe thing. You know what I mean? Thanks, John.
I really do hope that people are starting to get this message that Labour are not on the side of anybody in Scotland. They'll say they're on their side. They'll say they're on their side purely and simply to get their vote. But then, at the background, you have people like Sarwar that are blooming laughing at them. You know.
I mean, we've seen Sarwar and First Ministers getting a tanking last week. You know, a pat short out about misleading the Parliament and the people. Because he's campaigning in Hamilton rather than West by telling people that the SNP are going to stick the council tax up by 22%.
22%, yes.
As we've explained many times in this programme, Coslat approached the Scottish Government with this idea, which was put forward by the local authorities, which are mainly Labour Tory run.
What I can't understand here is here we have another situation where...
Thank you, Stephen.
Somebody in the Scottish Parliament...
At the door in 24 like it.
...has lied. Yeah?
Yep.
In the Commons, as an MP, you're protected. In Holyrood, you are not protected at all.
You face up with 2 years in jail.
So why is it that he is getting away with saying this? Because he actually said it in the chamber.
I think he just took the presiding officer by shock. You'll get the presiding officer's email address at scottishgov.com, and they just write to her and point out she's made an error here.
Yeah. Yes.
And then she can address the situation.
Right. Okay.
I think he was just flabbergasted what she was hearing. Because what we do know is Sarwar knows it's a consultation, it's no policy.
Remember, guys, one email the speaker at Holyrood can actually ignore or just miss. However, if there's dozens of emails pointing out that a mistake was made regarding Sarwar and what he said, then it needs to be followed up. All right?
Now, if you're wanting that email address, folks, and you want to see a shortcut, you have something called the search engine. If you put into the search engine Scottish Parliament presiding officer. All her details will come up, her officer, contact the lot. Okay.
Yep. Tom says, wonder how many taxes Scotland could have scrapped if we would have gained independence. Good point, Tom.
Aye.
But we will never know. That's unfortunate. Right. Probably
will. As I say, Paul Weed, the gap between Scottish Labour and the SNP is widening again. Right, yep. So that's a good sign for a Hamilton rather than Hamilton West by-election, we hope. Now, what do you make the mainstream media no covering the Rejoin EU march in London?
Well, you know, as we've always suspected, we suspect that it is Number 10 that is actually controlling the editorial staff at BBC.
Yes.
So therefore, allegedly, right? So therefore, they are being told, don't cover these things. We don't want this covered. This is dangerous before a general election. We've got Rishi Sunak giving them, overturning all the things that he's put in place, like the meat tax and the 7 bins and all the rest of it, right? Oh, so we're hoping that puts us on a good footing for the general election, and we definitely don't want Brexit protests covering in any way, shape, or form. What do you think of that?
The interesting thing about that is, David, I don't just think it's the Tories in this case. We've recently had the Lib Dem leader no want to talk about Brexit. They were previously a rejoined party.
Yep.
We've got Starmer. He's not playing at all.
Yep.
After his statement in Canada saying he wanted to stay aligned, didn't he want to drop standards, he's come out being questioned on it when the Tories were shoveling mud at him, saying that he's a rejoiner, to say that he can see no case for rejoining the EU.
All right. Let's take that aside just for a moment, right? And take that these people are, you know, they really do want to get back into the EU, right? The question remains, after what is going on since 2016, does anybody think the EU would be ready to take the UK back on again?
Right, there's a couple of things about that. The UK is left, so it need to apply to join again as a new member. It's not a rejoin, it's a new member. It wouldn't come out the same terms and conditions it had, which were very favourable. And more importantly, they don't meet the Article 49 stipulations to get there. One of the Article 49 stipulations is debt to GDP no more than 60%. The UK currently running at 101%.
Yeah.
So we don't meet the criteria there. We don't meet the criteria on equality. We don't meet the criteria under law and order. We don't meet the criteria under a humanitarian stipulations, like fairly treating asylum seekers. So under Article 49 of a prospectus member states, we meet very, very little of the criteria.
Correct.
So the UK as a whole, and I don't mean Scotland, because when we break free, that debt to GDP will drop right below because of the assets and things like that, you know.
Yeah, but also there's the other side, is that we're not going to do to them again what the UK did to them already.
That is the biggest problem for the EU. They're going to sit back and look at the UK as a fascination for the next 20 years until it finds a political stability, because let's face it, Labour are going to inherit a shit show provided they win, and it's no hung parliament.
Yeah.
Labour's going to inherit a shit show, and there's going to be very little we can do about that shit show.
I can see where perhaps Starmer will go cap in hand and say, look, you know, we've changed governments and we're looking for maybe a new relationship with you, right? Where the EU are very, very pragmatic in that. They have done slight sidesteps in the past, and it's possible they might again, but they're not going to do it major.
Well, at this point in time, the car manufacturers are pushing their governments, France and Germany, and they want something called associate membership.
Yeah.
Where you can get access to the single market but not the customs union.
Aren't we talking about EFTA?
No, because EFTA get access to the single market and customs union.
Yeah, well, but okay, so aren't we talking about a Switzerland-style deal?
More or less, but they're all associate memberships for other states. as opposed to full membership.
Yeah.
But as I say, the EU, when Starmer talks about renegotiating the deal in 25, it's not up for renegotiation. That's dishonesty. Again, dishonesty. Yeah. It's not up for negotiation, it's up for review.
Yes.
You see what's working well and what isn't. You tweak on the bits that's working well and the bits that are no.
He could well nigh push for a renegotiation. However, the EU just needs to say no.
The EU put statement suits at Starmer's visit saying there isn't renegotiating the deal.
Yeah, that's right.
And the same in always idea of a refugee return scheme. The EU was rubbish that and all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so the march in London, it was ignored by all the mainstream broadcasters in the UK, not just the BBC, Sky, Channel 4, ITV, they all ignored it.
What it does tell us, rather loudly, it tells us that those mainstream media broadcasters are all controlled by one single control, simple as that. And that control, I would believe, is number 10. Or certainly Whitehall and the British establishment.
Definitely. But what it also does is it undermines democracy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, again. Right. Westminster listing Scotland and Wales as regions of England in documents.
Yes.
Do you believe that?
Oh, I believe it. But you know me, I like a wee bit of history.
Yeah, please.
And a friend, Jenny Ellis, she's been on the show with us. She's produced a few books. And in the histories, it tells you that no long after the Treaty of Union, England reverted to signing trade deals as England rather than GB. Now, the discovery of this latest caper was by Julian Ferguson, a poet, Scottish poet, who was on the government website for whatever reason, and she noticed that Scotland was being listed as a region of England rather than GB. Yeah. Right? And as it turns out, it's been the same for Wales. Now, what the government said was this was a gaffe. It should have said GB and they took the offending article down. How many other documents does it appear in?
Well, as many of these documents are electronic nowadays, it would be a simple search to do. But it can't be done by us. It has to be done by the House of Commons library staff.
Yes. But you get that, don't you? Yeah. I mean, that's the arrogance of Westminster. It's also an argument that they're putting up that Scotland ceased to exist. It's now a region of England. Yeah. And that argument was the one that it was trying to be put forward by Fluffy Mundell. Yeah. When it was pointed out to Fluffy by constitutional experts, well, Scotland doesn't exist, neither does England.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that shut that whole crap down. Yeah. Because you can't tell the people in England that they no longer exist and that their country doesn't exist. You can tell the people of Scotland that, but apparently you can't tell the people of England that.
Yeah.
Interesting, eh?
And very interesting.
But there's nothing to do with the people. This is to do with Westminster trying to lay claim. And they'll have as many documents gone as far back as possible that says Scotland's a region rather than a country, in order to back up any future court case that might be needed.
Well, you know, when you look at it very practically, what they're doing is they're doing anything they can. They know that they are on a blooming paddle wheel, on a canoe with 100 holes in the bottom of it, if Scotland goes its own way. Yeah?
Yeah.
They know fine well that the natural resources are gone, which is where the real wealth comes from.
Yeah.
They know that they've got a situation whereby the Bank of England wouldn't possibly be able to exist as it is without Scotland's muscle in exporting, because the balance of payments would be so out of kilter with between England and the rest of the world, because they're an importing nation, whereas Scotland are an exporting nation.
And when you're an exporting nation to the extent that Scotland does, the chances of having a deficit are slightly bugger all. there's always a surplus.
Yeah, but also our currency, our own currency, the Scottish currency that we would form after independence, would have to be controlled by our central bank, and there would have to be planned devaluations of that currency, which is a good thing when it's planned, because it would have to be it stop the currency from becoming too hard. So therefore, we'll try and keep the cost of a bottle of whiskey in New York the same tomorrow as it was today.
Yep. Now, as we know, this was all pointed out by Professor John McCrone way back when the McCrone report was buried, so that people of Scotland thought they were poor while England was lapping it up. Yeah. Right, anyway.
It's all coming to roost. It's all coming to roost, every bit of it.
Let's move on to Westminster lists in Scotland and Wales as regions of England. A Unison chief negotiator and Labour member and activist, as well as a member of Scotland in the Union, the Shady Unionist group, which funds out money to the Tories and the Labour Party, has come under attention because Unison, one of the three unions involved in the school staff strikes, has links with these places, and Unison is the only one of the three unions who hasn't taken the deal. Now, Joanne Baxter, her name is, right? Now, I have a wee bit of inside information here on this particular person, which I'm not going to disclose because it's a friend who is a friend of, who's told me a wee bit about this person. Apparently, she's not exactly the nicest person on the planet, but that's not the point. The point is, it's being claimed that she's actually at loggerheads with her members, because we're seeing all over our social media that Unison members are saying, hold on a minute, we're just going to take this deal. But the difference is, GMB and Unite have halted strike action while they put this deal to the members. Yep. Unison are continuing the strike action while putting the deal to the members, which is unusual. Normally strikes are called that. So what's being called into a question here is, no our politics or allegiances, or our politics and allegiances, is her allegiance, is her unionist background affecting the decisions being made by that trade union? She's also the head of the STUC, this Gillian Baxter. Now, I don't know whether people would, I really don't know this one. When I seen this one come into National, I thought, this is not the sort of thing that the newspaper should be printing. Because, let's face it, I mean, claiming that she's blocking the trade union for accepting the deal just because she wants to collect, she's a unionist that wants to cause disruption, that's a bit of a strong accusation.
Yeah, it is. So therefore, the newspapers that have printed it must have good evidence to go off.
Well, it's a national newspaper. I'm not going to, but obviously since then it's come up, people questioning whether the National should have printed this article, designating their allegiance to this dark shady mob run by ex-Labour MP Pamela Nash called Scotland and the Union.
Yeah.
Well, and by the way, Scotland, the Union also take money for the other shady organisation here called the Unionist Trust.
Yeah.
And nobody knows where the Unionist Trust is getting its money from. Wow. And the Unionist Trust is piling its money into the Labour Party at this point in time. It was the Conservatives. The Labour Party looked more prominent here in Scotland, the Conservatives have changed that side. And they also pile money into Scotland and the Union.
If we look at where monies have come from in the past to all these kind of organisations, I'm not saying Scotland Union allegedly, right? However, there have been sources of where money's come from, and we've seen the direction of the money go from the Tory party to Saudi Arabian princes to Northern Ireland. And
Unionist Trust. Home democracy cracked all of this.
Just to be able to cover up what's been going on. And I'll tell you now, it's like, guys, this is what you're up against. However, this particular one, I've actually seen somebody put up a post on Facebook saying, I'm a Unison member and I don't take lightly being put on strike to actually help the Labour Party win Rutherglen. And that's what it's coming down to. It's like they're creating a stushy by creating strike so that the Labour politicians can go, oh, look, this is SNP's fault, you know.
Anyway, John Baxter's all other papers saying that they haven't learned from last year's strikes. They settled last year, they're trying to settle this year. What is there no to learn? You're sitting around the negotiation table, putting your cards on the table and saying, this is what we can't do. Anyways, we know the extra funding that they've found has come out of other services, ring fence for other services. So the other services are going to see a depletion in their availability and probably loss of staff.
You know, but it's a finite number of people when you look at it, right? The people that are involved that are going on strike, right? And the Scottish Government have put 80 million, another 80 million on the table in order to avert this strike action.
That's because the children's education before anything else.
That's right. So what is there not to negotiate?
That's what I'm saying, but to say that they haven't learned the lessons, we talk, the Scottish Government settled with everybody except for this Unison. And it just so happens that this particular person's a member of Scotland in the Union, a member of the Labour Party, and one of the top trade unions in the country.
Yeah, part of the NEC.
The TMB tried mucking about and all in Glasgow, and now membership weren't having it.
She's one of the top members of the Labour's NEC, isn't she, as well?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye, in Scotland.
Yeah.
Right. So, to be fair, I don't know this woman personally, right? And I don't know if that's the sort of stunt she would pull. She's supposed to be a trade unionist representing the best interests of her members. She's not supposed to be pulling this sort of prank if that is what she's done.
Correct.
I don't think that. I really don't think it's something that the national newspaper should have had. Putting doubt into the position of the trade union because one person at the top is an arch unionist.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, trade unions are run by committee. It just depends on how much influence she has on the committee.
Yeah, correct. That's what it always comes down to. It comes down to one person at the end of the day, right? And how much power that person can wield within that real politics, right? Right, can we move on to BBC Trust trying to spin general election strategy? Because this is one that's close to both our hearts and one that we need to get stamped on from a great height.
Well, to be fair, Stephen Flynn was very, very good at stamping on it, and he wouldn't give any more detail. Now, what it was Stephen Flynn was being interviewed on the BBC and other news outlets, and he was asked about the seats and no votes decision of the SNP.
Yeah.
We'll get to how irrelevant the bloody question was. What the unions are trying to do is pin it to 50% of the Scottish electorate.
We know that. They're trying to change the rules of Westminster. Now, what I would say to every one of them, and shout at them, if you ever see any of the unionist politicians that start to bloom and do that or talk about that in a public meeting in front of you, just say, go to the Speaker in the House of Commons and ask him to change the rules then, if that's the case, if that's what you want. Because otherwise, it's first past the bloody post, and therefore the number of seats is held by people with their bums on those seats. Number of MPs elected.
Now, generally, the party that gets the most seats also has the majority of the vote. But what they're trying to do is get that number to a specific 50% plus one. Anyway, Stephen Flynn was having none of it. He says, no, it's seats. This is a Westminster election. He more or less points out what you're talking about. He points out the size of the proportion of the population in England that put the Conservatives in. The proportion of the population in England that put Labour in. And he says, well, here in Scotland is a different situation. If the SNP won the majority of the seats in Scotland, they have won that general election in Scotland. You know? Yeah. And then he goes on to say, we will then look at ways to bring about the mandate given to the MPs by the Scottish people. He wasn't given any of this crap about they're all giving it. She started to spin it about, so this is a mandate looking for a referendum. He says, no, this is a mandate to put into effect of all of the Scottish people. The people will have spoken.
Yeah.
So what the mainstream media, especially in our UK, are trying to do is spin Scotland's democracy as a lesser again.
Yeah.
So no matter what the GE comes round, your ex will always be for independence. I agree. The same as an Steve. But it is important, folks, that you keep an eye on this. And it's important that the SNP stand strong in this. And Stephen Flynn was very good at the weekend there. He handled himself really well.
Back in the 1979 blooming vote that went on, right? The goalposts were changed. And it made it such that dead people were voting no for the what was being voted on, right? And we've got to be careful that we don't allow anybody an inch of space to get the goalposts changed. We need to make sure that it's run on Westminster rules, which is first past the post. And
listen, that's what Stephen did. Right, and Margaret saying, isn't this a good reason to have a Scottish general election before Westminster? No, we couldn't have one before Westminster. Yeah. But the strategy with the SNP is probably better than the Scottish. You're right, Tom. Margaret Thatcher's made it clear. I've said this before. She says, fill this place with Scottish MPs, pro-independence MPs are independent. That's on record. So the strategy's right. And Tom, you're correct. The SNP conference will just decide the direction of the party regarding it. It won't just decide the direction of the party. It will decide the direction of the movement.
Yeah.
Simple as that, Tom. Because when you get right down to it, the Greens, they'll follow the SNP's manifesto commitment, putting independence as number one, on that number one in that manifesto, and so will the Alpha Party. But the policy direction will be decided by the SNP because they own the bus, they're driving it. Yeah. Right, so as I say, Westminster are trying to rejig your rules, folks. We've spoken about this before. Keep an eye on it. Right, number 6, racket Scottish medical.
Not allow any gerrymandering of that whatsoever, or any moving of the goalposts. It's Westminster rules, and it will stay as Westminster rules. Otherwise, the Speaker will have to put it to a vote through the whole of the chamber for every single party in Westminster to now be run on numbers of votes rather than numbers of seats.
Yep.
How do they do it? How would they do it in Westminster? Think about it.
Right, anyway, let's move on. Hey, the BBC are running an article saying racking medical facilities in Scotland, only 97 of the 240 facilities have been checked. They also go on to claim the Queen Elizabeth Hospital is a rack in it, and so there's a new Edinburgh Royal Infirmary. But as we know, since 1993, rack has not been allowed to be used in structural matters in buildings. It's still using a utility conduits, as you and I have already spoke about in this programme.
Yep.
Anyway, that one annoyed me because it was done to give Jackie Bailey a chance to say too slow, too slow, too slow. So out of Scotland's 240 medical facilities, they're talking about health centres and things like that. I went and had a wee look, and the 97 they're talking about, well, the majority of them were built pre-devolution. The rest, 140 of them odd, have all been built after 1990 odds. So there's probably no rack, and if there is rack, it'll be in utility conduits.
Yeah. And therefore, if it's in conduits, which tends to be in the core of a building, right? They can't get wet from the outside. The only way that they could possibly get wet is by an internal leak, which would be
within the utility conduit. That's right.
There you go.
But as I say, the interesting thing about it was just there to give Jackie Bailey a chance to shout, too slow, too slow. But the truth is, folks, you know how to use a search engine, just go and have a look. Most of these health centres and things like that have all been built since devolution and post 1993, so none of them get rack in them. But the other reason why they haven't all been surveyed yet is because there's only so many experts in Scotland, and they're covering education, and they're covering health, they'll be covering the courts, they'll be covering the cock shops, They'll be covering everything that was built pre.
David, you've worked with it, right?
Aye.
When the expert arrives on site, what have they got to do to decide whether that bit of wall or that bit of ceiling or the rest of it is rack? Oh, no.
Core it. I've got to core it. You get to the rebar, you see the rebar first.
Yeah, so therefore what you've got to do is either you're able to core yourself, right? Or you have to call in somebody to do it, right? With a great big round coring device.
Right? And what you do is you take a core. But you're not interested in the concrete, you're only interested in the rebar.
That's right. Well, you're
so you've got to know where in the concrete to core so you can get to the rebar.
Yeah.
Now listen folks, I've explained how this slurry is made. Right? Yeah. It's basically just sand, cement and magnesium to aerate it.
Yeah.
You know, it's reasonably, and what they have to do with the rebar is coat it in either a tar or some sort of fabric because the rack won't take to the metal. It just won't take to metal.
Yeah.
You know, and you get the reaction with the magnesium and the iron as well. Apparently, that is a problem as well. Apparently, I'm not a chemist, so I don't know much about it. But I know how this stuff's made. I know how you core it, and I know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Are you looking for rusty rebar when you core it? Well, as I say, I looked at this story and I thought there's something not right here. So I went and had a wee look at the hospital estate, the NHS estate in Scotland, right? And with the claim about Queen Elizabeth and the Royal Infirmary in Edinburgh, we know that that's there is rack in there, but it's for utility conduits. It's not for structural stuff. There's been nothing built structurally with rack since 1993.
Yeah.
Right, nothing.
Yeah.
And as most of Scotland says, medical facilities and med centres and all that are all built after devolution.
Mm-hmm.
They're not even going in it unless it's in conduits. So I went in, as I say, I had a wee look and I said, there's something doesn't sound right about this. And then I had a wee look at what's involved in testing these places. Now, so far as I'm aware, only 2 institutes in Scotland have been closed, and that's a gymnasium in Ayr and New Forest Academy in Moray has been closed. But what was interesting about the BBC article, it points out where 54 buildings here, X amount of buildings there. Most of the buildings that are affected or could be affected are actually in Aberdeenshire and Moray, which have been run by the Tories forever.
So it's a Tory plot we're thinking. They all went.
No, at all. It's just that stupid buggers haven't invested in their infrastructure. You know what I mean? At council level up there. But as I say, the whole thing was just to give Jackie Bailey a chance to say this is happening too slow. But there's only X amount of experts in Scotland, and we're looking at a huge amount of public buildings. We're looking at libraries. We're looking at swimming pools. We're looking at bloody police offices. We're looking at court buildings. We're looking at university buildings. We're looking at the secondary school estate, the primary school estate. We're looking at fire stations. We're looking at ambulance stations. It's a massive undertaking. A massive undertaking. And the College of Structural Engineers and Architects have only got so many qualified people they can put forward to do the bloody job. Yeah. And if we were bringing them in for states that don't have rack in their buildings anywhere because in the last 30, 40 years they've remedied the problem that was identified back in 1985, you know, we could always go and ask for structural engineers from these places, but we'd need to pay them. And of course, with the unions ploughing in saying we should be educating, we're in, we should be educating, we're in. It's a no-win situation.
Correct. Yeah.
I just thought the story was a wee bit iffy, so I went and had a look. And out of the 140 or the 143 that haven't been inspected so far, some of them have been graded with a risk, but most of them are built after 1993, so there's no structural rack in them.
Yeah.
Or there shouldn't be.
Well, there shouldn't be, right? But the most important thing is that in the fullness of time, they will all be checked. I appreciate that. It's just that due to the number of people that are involved in actually doing the checking, it can't all be done in one day. So when Madam Bailey opens her fucking yap yet again and says, "Oh, not fast enough," Somebody, please, somewhere, tell it to fucking sit
What was
down.
interesting in that article as well, by the way, when I was reading it, was they pointed out that the UK government only made the Scottish government aware of it last year, when they have known since 1998.
Okay. Yeah, again, you couldn't make it up, could you?
Right, let's move on. Starmer does another U-turn, and this one's serious.
Yes.
Yeah, as a human rights lawyer, he's boasting about being a human rights lawyer. Now, one of his pledges to the disabled was that he was going to enshrine the UN's Charter on the Rights of the Disabled into UK law. But he's back doing it, and he's backed away from it. Why? Because them doing that road blocked the Scottish government from enshrining the UN Charter on the Rights of the Child into law. So it was a bit hypocritical if they were going to start writing UN charters on certain groups into law. There would be a bloody outrage here in Scotland.
Yeah.
I mean, they blocked Scotland enshrining the rights of our children into law in Westminster because they claimed it would mean that Westminster would have to think about our children, while writing law. Surely fuck Westminster was thinking about our children when they write law anyway. So I'm afraid the disabled are getting the same kick in the kahunas as Scottish children.
Ouch. Right, okay.
But it's serious because this is a pledge that Starmer made way back before becoming Labour leader.
Can I ask everybody just a simple question? What are Labour for?
Protecting the power, and the privilege and patronage of the UK state. Two cheeks to the same arse, remember? Two cheeks to the same arse.
Right.
But that one for Starmer is a real, that's as low as it goes.
That's number 11.
Number 11, U-turn, aye.
Yeah.
That was, and to be fair, the disability charities doing that road are really giving it to him. And rightly so.
I really do honestly hope that there's maybe somebody that's watching this, might be watching it on catch up afterwards, right? That was maybe thinking, oh, I'm going to vote Labour in this election, right? The by-election, right? Suddenly getting it and realising, hang on a second, what are Labour for? Certainly not for you. Are they?
David, you know, I was broadcasting for a truck. He gets to go back 6-7 years when they were kicking the disabled back then. I was in Sense, Scotland, in Glasgow, getting my lunch.
Yeah.
And the announcements on the stripping back a pip and mobility and all that was being announced. The people in there with their children, they looked scared. Yeah. I did a broadcast on it after I came out. I was almost crying.
Yeah.
Because the announcement that was coming across the radio how they were getting kicked by the Westminster government and how it was going to affect their quality of life and things like that. They were all wondering how they were going to be able to maintain the needs of their children. They were, I mean, really high need children. You know what I mean?
Do you remember the picture of Ruth Davidson in the newspaper, sat on top of a mobility scooter with a whole group of Tories round about her, and they were proud of what they'd done.
Right.
That just summed it up for me. It's like, how dare you? The people that have got the least ability to protect themselves in society are doing that to them. Doing that.
Thankfully, most of the disability benefits have devolved to Scotland, so we can get to mitigate the worst excesses of that bloody pit down that road. Right, let's move on to the idiot Sunak. On Thursday, we were talking about he was going to roll back on environmental things, but at that point in time, he hadn't made his speech, or he was making his speech while we were broadcasting.
Yeah.
He went on at 4:30. We were on 4:30 at 5 p.m. But now we know that what he was talking about was, he's flipped it. Nurse, he's off his bloody meds. Apparently, Sunak scrapping 7 bins, meat tax, compulsory carrying other people when you're in your car. What else is he scrapping?
The meat tax. Did you get that meat tax?
Oh, aye, he's kicking the electrification of private transport into the long grass until 2035, claiming that the UK only produces 1% of the world's CO2 emissions.
Yeah.
Now, there's only 100% right, and there's 192 United Nations recognised nations.
Yeah.
They cannot claim they're only producing 1%.
Yeah.
Even we know China. Even we know that China. Even though that we know the 7 biggest economies are the biggest polluters. So, and guess who's in at number 7? The UK.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, you've got to look at the UK as being an outlier in that, because he's just given away or sold 100 more licenses to produce oil and gas, which is sold around the world and burned around the world. So therefore, the UK's percentage of pollution is through the fucking ceiling.
It's not just through the ceiling. This idea that we only produce 1% is absolute bollocks. As we know, most of the pollution is produced by the 7 biggest economies. Right, so there's China, India, America, France, Germany. There's another one in front of us. Well, I haven't got them in the right order there, but probably Brazil, and then the UK. That's the 7 biggest economies. That's not in the right order, but that is the 7 biggest economies. So the UK is a much bigger polluter than what Rishi Sunak said.
Also, you've got to look at that in terms of maybe Venezuela, who are the biggest, have got the biggest oil holding in the entire world, right? They might not be the biggest economy, but they sell that oil or give it away or whatever they're doing, right? And it's the people that are burning it that add to that percentage. So really the percentage is through the ceiling for a country like Venezuela, but also for UK. UK is well up. Not just 1%, it's way beyond that because of the oil and gas that's been extracted from our seabeds.
Aye. But it was interesting that he scrapped all these non-existent policies. That's how bad he's getting. He's throwing out red meat to see what's going to be picked up by the wolves, you know.
Do you think he's got an imaginary friend? Because I don't think he's got any other friends, is he?
No, he's only wee fella, isn't he?
That big house, he's probably got ghosts, and he's probably got a wee imaginary friend going. They've all got 7 bins. Why don't you get rid of them? That would make them your friends as well.
Right. So Sunak has flipped his lid.
Yep.
Non-existent policy has been scrapped. Imaginary policy has been scrapped. So he might have just scrapped his imaginary friend right now.
I heard he was talking about giving us all a swimming pool.
Aye.
That would have made him my friend. As long as it's heated.
What makes Sunak's story even funnier is he kicks net zero into the long grass, right? The car manufacturers have poured billions into making electric cars after chump. 100 top economists throughout the UK and Europe have told him this is a backward step and it means it will cost Britain more in the long run and you will no longer be at the forefront. The United Nations didn't even bother inviting him to the climate change conference. He sent the deputy idiot Oliver Dowden, who got to sit in the crowd and listen to what was being said. The UK is being laughed at.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think
David is right.
No, but I think this
is going to cost the UK consumer more, and it's going to affect the economy.
Yeah. Well, I think as regards car manufacturers, if you just take it down to a very, very practical level, right? The thing that was prompting sales of electric vehicles, I call them milk floats. I don't trust the technology whatsoever, right? Batteries are a bad idea. They are a fire risk. And it's like they're on our roads, very, very dangerous. Okay, we've got tanks full of petrol and all the rest of it, right? But we know how to protect that. These batteries are creating an incredible extra weight to the car. And if you put a load of cars, if every car that went into these multi-storey car parks in Glasgow was an electric vehicle, the car park would collapse, right? But more importantly, because he's put back the date when he's going to be filtering out diesel and petrol cars. That means that the pressure is off people to get rid of their petrol or diesel car, and therefore these companies that are producing electric vehicles are going to lose out to the point where it could see a few of them tumble.
Right, that's true. As I say, but he's been scalped for all directions for the stupidness last Thursday. But, you know, he's trying to find something to go to the electric way.
If anybody...
What he was trying to claim was he won't penalise the people who are making them pay for going green, which just means that in the long run, it's going to cost more.
Yeah, I mean, I thought at first when I saw it was a bit of a joke. The Americans thought he was a joke, certainly, when it was announced he became Foreign Secretary. If you remember, the guy in the White House actually went, he was trying to stop himself laughing out loud, right? But Sunak is a laugh. He is not fit to be a Prime Minister.
None of the last three have been. In fact, none of them since David Cameron have been fit to be.
In actual fact, I'll tell you now, I do think Liz Truss is absolutely nonsensical as a Prime Minister, but she's better suited to being a Prime Minister than Rishi Sunak is.
That's saying something, David. Well, on that, we're going to move on to a new study. Well, it's not a new study, it was a study between 2013 2016.
Yeah.
Whose results have just been released by Glasgow University, and of course, it's on the BBC website. And what it's trying to say is SNP bad because Scots patients from the private areas with 3 to 4 illnesses get less time with the GP than those from more prosperous areas. Shall we go into that a little?
Yeah, I was talking to David about this prior to the show going on, and I remember I was doing some work for a telecoms company up in Alexander Parade, and I had to go down and deliver some kit to I forget what the name of what was the name of the street? Duke Street. The Duke Street surgery, right? Now I've got to Clydebank Health Centre, right? And it's a big empty space. Even the old Clydebank Health Centre, where it was like porta cabins all joined together, it was still relatively quiet. I went in this Duke Street and I was shocked. I was shocked with the amount of people that were in that one that one doctor's surgery, right? But that's true of all city centre health centres. They are generally much busier, and the people that attend them are those that are affected by health inequalities. They are the poor.
With this study, there was 150 GP surgeries, right, that were studied. As you pointed out, demographics in areas and, of course, population density makes a big difference. Most of the areas of deprivation are urban.
Yeah.
Most of the areas of most of the more affluent areas are rural. Mm. In the most affluent areas, a percentage of those will be private.
Yeah.
So there'll be less people attending the GP. Your average GP surgery in an urban environment would have 10,000 patients per surgery.
Yeah.
You go to the more affluent areas where it's more rural, it might be 6 or 7 and it's spread over a wider area. So the study doesn't really actually reveal anything new. Why did it make the press? Need another reason to kick the SNP.
Yeah.
So there's a by-election on. You know, and as I say, why was this study for 2016 mainstream media today? For that exact reason. To point out the obvious. Yeah. More deprived areas, the most deprived areas are in urban settings. I'm not saying there isn't poverty and deprivation in rural areas. There is.
Yeah.
We know there is. But generally, when you're in a rural area and you're hitting the skids, you're looking at a more built-up area or an urban area because you think there's more work there, you get a chance of getting out the skids.
The most important thing is if you are at the upper end where you are better off, generally your health outcomes are much better than those of the poorer in our communities.
Your quality and nutrition is better. You get a better chance of life because you get a better education. One of the best schools in these areas. You know, and if you really need medical, your parents can afford to take you private. Anyway.
And also, if you are better off, it's true, although unfortunate, that you tend to make better health choices.
Aye.
As in, you may not take drugs, you may not become an alcoholic, you may not smoke, you might have more opportunity for exercise or whatever because you're in a more rural setting. You know, so there you go.
Aye, right. So why was this in the press today? This study that was done between 2013 and 2016 of 150 GP surgeries to tell us what we already bloody well knew. That was a chance to kick the SNP and say it's their fault.
Yeah.
You know, 16 years of them being in charge. Listen, doesn't change. It's been like this forever. David and I have talked about reports going all the way back in the 80s that covers this stuff.
Go looking for it in the news, get writing about it, and give your opinion. Because your opinion is every bit as good as an opinion given by the mainstream media on anything you care to talk about.
Aye, Chris. I mean, it's England's NHS is 40 bits. Yours is being held together by a government that's more willing to invest in it. But even at that, it's under pressure. Let's move on to the last and COVID.
Is that digging I can hear?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, it is. It's digging. Oh, they found a coffin. There's somebody stepping out the coffin. Who's that?
It's Gordie Brown. They've dragged him out his crib again. So we're ending a wee bit of comedy, folks. Gordie Brown at the weekend was at a Leeds, Scotland, which is a unionist event, to tell Sir Kid Starmer to scrap universal credit and revert to decent benefits and to get rid of the bedroom tax. Of course, Sir Kid Starmer didn't pay any attention to the event whatsoever because it isn't a Labour event. It's a Leeds, Scotland unionist event.
Yeah, it's Gordon Brown basically opening his gob and letting his belly rumble again.
No, it's not that. This Leeds Scotland thing is actually a unionist organisation to fight against the idea.
No, but Gordon Brown being at the pinnacle of that.
Aye. It's his
opening his gob and letting his belly rumble, you know. So.
Anyway, somebody's sponsored him to tour Scotland with these bloody things. But he's not doing it out of his own pocket, I doubt.
Yeah, appreciate that.
But I just thought it was funny the way Starmer just blanked him. You know, absolutely blanked him. Hey, ex-Labour PM, ex-Labour MP, ex-Labour Big Beast. The X is the clue.
Yeah.
You know, but I just thought it was funny. I just thought it was so funny. Gordie Brown sticks his head above the parapet to tell Starmer how to keep Scotland in the Union. And Scotland and Starmer just ignores him. It's the same way as his so-called federalism idea to keep Scotland in the Union. Straight into the strimmer. Bang, gone.
I mean,
Gordie Brown sent me some bin.
this time, guys, the simple way to deal with Gordon Brown is to laugh at the man, because it is well nigh possible a lot of what he said on the run-up to the 2014 referendum is why you're in the state you're in. So we need Gordon Brown just being laughed off.
Listen, David, if anybody wants to know the real values of Labour and the real values of Gordon Brown, just remember this. When it was pointed out to him that none of the promises that he made to Scotland to keep them in the Union were fulfilled, his reply was, they should have read the fucking small print.
Yeah, I know. What I think you say. That to me was a bit like, do you remember when he was doing the walk through the crowd and wee woman was having a go at him for the public, right? And he got in the car and he forgot to take his radio mic off. Right?
Aye. Called her a bloody bigot. By the way, the wee woman was a bigot, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, and then he was blooming saying, who the fuck does she think she is? You know what I mean? Or what's that? You know. And that's what Gordon Brown's about. Gordon Brown is not a nice person. Not a nice person, not in the least. Right? Certainly he's not a nice person when he misleads his own people for personal political privilege.
Yep. Aye, and can get as we wind this one up, we better mention Scotland that beat Tonga in the Rugby World Cup Group B. Okay. We generally don't cover that sort of thing. We leave that for the comments, but as it's come up a couple of times, I guess we better congratulate Scotland's team.
Yeah. Well done, guys.
Beating Tonga and getting 7 tries and a bonus point.
Yeah.
Aye. So we've ended in a wee bit of comedy. Clunkin Fist being dragged out his crypt again, and is once again being ignored by the new generation. The clue's in the ex, folks. Ex Prime Minister, ex Labour MP.
Yeah.
He's a has-been, not to be listened to.
Yes.
Please thank absolutely everyone for your super chats today and your super stickers. And anybody who's made contributions in any other way. As I say, David and I are working hard to get this out into the North East. It's been harder than we thought it was going to be, but we do have a list of charities coming through that I am contacting. We'll hopefully have an update for you and have it out the door by Thursday. Although David's busy until Wednesday, so we're working on it Thursday morning. Yeah. Apparently Rosie's son lives in London, can't get a doctor's appointment. Yeah. Right, so that just leaves us a couple of things left today. Folks, please, if you're on YouTube, hit the like button. It helps the algorithm.
Rosie, right? That's dreadful. That's dreadful. That really is dreadful.
Aye.
Saying that your son lives in London and he can't get a doctor's appointment for 6 weeks. What kind of place is that? My goodness me. Anyway.
If you haven't already,
following the doctors, what I've been doing is I've been asking for a telephone consultation, and generally the doctor will ring me up the same day and then say, "Can you manage to get down to the surgery now, so I can have a look at you?" And that's the way I've been doing it. Now they've actually changed it in neurosurgery to where they just give you an appointment same day if they can. All right.
It's always been that way with surgery, but anyway. As I say, folks, so David really interrupted. Hit the like button if you're on YouTube. Hit the share button if you're on Facebook. Hit the like button. Hit the share button. And if you like what it is we do with the two Davies, share across your social media platforms. Any ones that will take video this long. Thank you very much for your contributions. We'll go back.
And subscribe. We need more subscribers. We need a lot more subscribers.
Yes, we do. And what do you call it? And we'll see you Thursday, 4 p.m.
Aye. That's the point. Do it all again.
We'll do it all again. So I hope you enjoyed the show. That just leaves one thing left today. Bye, Davey. Sorry, that one. Bye, Davey.
Bye, guys.
Bye, folks.
Thanks for joining us.